Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Hexagon Hacks session. My name is Rebecca, and I'll be kicking things off before we jump into today's topic. For those of you that may be new to Hexagon Hacks, each Wednesday, a member of the Digital Thinker team brings you a fast-paced 15-minute session with practical tips to help you get the most out of Hexagon EAM. Today, we'll be continuing our System Admin Hacks series. Looking ahead, we'll be hearing from Katie and Victor before taking a pause the week of Thanksgiving. So we will not be meeting the day before Thanksgiving, so make sure you clear your calendar. Then we will wrap up the calendar year focusing on mobile and field productivity. If you miss a session, the recordings are available on the Digital Thinker YouTube channel, and I just added a link to the meeting chat. With that, let's go ahead and dive in, and I will hand it over to Stephanie, who's here to share about Screen Designer. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well today. Today, I'm going to go into talk a little bit more about Screen Designer and some of the options. So I don't know everybody on the call, but I was a user for over 10 years, and a lot of this I did not know, and it definitely would have helped me clean up our screens and make it a little bit easier for the users. So what they see is actually what you guys use versus a whole bunch of maybe fields that do not apply. So I'm gonna jump right in. I did do a little screenshot talking about required, protective, optional default, hidden, and not available, and just a little bit of the descriptions of what they mean. So required, just like it sounds, it is a required field that needs to be populated before you can save. Protected means that, hey, you can't do anything with that field. It is protected. No one can update it or change it for that user group if that field is protected. Optional, it's an optional field that you can populate depending on if it applies to what you're doing. Now, this is where I'm going to really deep dive is the difference between hidden and not available. So hidden means that it is hidden from the actual screen, but still appears in the lookups. Same thing with your data spy layouts and your quick filters. So if that field is just hidden, it will appear in both of those places versus not available, it will not appear in your layout options or in your lookup. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen and kind of go over a couple examples. I decided to go over the asset screen because I feel like there's so many fields that are available that may or may not apply to what your company is doing. So on our quick filter, we can see that these are all the options that are out there that either are hidden or showing today. So I'm going to go in, and this is all done by user group. So when you do Screen Designer, you can decide, maybe certain things apply to your technicians that don't apply to your supervisors. So for our example, I'm just going to keep it at the R5 admin level. And I'm going to hit continue. So you can see all the fields that are out there that are available. The ones that are grayed out, those are the ones that are hidden. And I don't think we have any that are not available. So I'm going to pick one up here and make it so it's not available. So let's go, I'm going to do withdrawal date, and I'm going to make it not available. So once I do that and I click save, that should not appear in my quick filter or in my data spy layout anymore. So I'm going to go expand right, and my withdrawal date should not be there. So it's not even showing up as an option in my quick filter versus it should not appear in my layout either. So if you hit edit and go into layout, I'm going to go all the way down because it's alphabetically, and that withdrawal date should not be there. Yep, it is not there as an option. So it makes it kind of a good thing to help you be able to go through the field and truly kind of go over what is important for you guys to see, but also maybe what you can kind of clean up. And it's more than just like the list view. You can also do it, let's say on, let's see, maybe on the PM schedule. Maybe there's a certain field that you do not want in this drop down. You can do the exact same thing that I just went over on the list view, where you do the screen designer. And again, select your user group, what it applies. My only caution is make sure that if your layouts for your user groups are different, maybe do it user group by user group, because you don't want to override what you have out there, especially if it's already cleaned up to what you want it to look like for that user group. So that's just kind of a word of caution if you have the layout a little differently for user groups. All right. Do you have the same ability to hide this information? So maybe you guys never have a second meter. You can definitely make it not available, and it just takes it away from lookups. It takes it away from, if you're making a data spy or any of that kind of information. Make sure nobody has any questions. Does anybody have any questions about the difference between, I guess I could go a little bit more hidden, but hidden just means that it doesn't appear on the screen, but it will still be in both your data spy lookups and also your quick filter over here. So yes, you are hiding it from the screen, but you're still making it so it's available. So maybe there's information you don't need your technician to fill out, but if you need them to be able to search by that information, you can still do that where they still have access to that field, but don't have the ability to change or edit or actually see that on their screen if it's not a normal thing that they need to look at. Does anybody have any questions about the difference between hidden and not available or default optional, and then the normal, the rest of the options that you have? I know I did that really fast, but I want to make sure to cover especially the differences. And then you can always just bring it back to hidden. Save.
Yeah, I'll just mention something that I didn't even realize, until I'd been working with EAM for a while, but how the hidden versus not available impacts buttons on the screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you may have already planned to share this, Stephanie, but sometimes we get questions of, okay, why does sometimes the buttons, are always fixed on the screen versus they're not shown, but users see them when they right click. And that's another example of the hidden versus the not available. So yeah, Stephanie's showing it here.
That's a good point. Yeah, you can do that also with like the action button on the different screens by user group. So maybe there's an action that you need to make available for certain user groups. You can also do the same where you change that to being showing or not available and give them access to it. Yeah. It allows you kind of control by user group what that user can do. The other couple things I wanted to point out about Screen Designer and the different fields. So if you do change the field name, let's say I right click misassign to, if I edit the field name, that changes it for all user groups. Even though you're just saying, hey, I just want an R5 admin, it actually changes it for all user groups. And it does give you that little note of caution up there, but just kind of a reminder of if you change that, it changes it for everybody. Same thing with hyperlinks. So if you hyperlink to a certain field, it's going to change it it's going to add that hyperlink to all user groups, whether or not you selected them or not. So it's just kind of a word of caution for that. If there's certain things that you're hyperlinking to, just making sure if that user group shouldn't be able to update that you take that away in the screen permissions on the user group setup. And one other thing I want to point out is there are some system fields that won't let you change it or make it unrequired. So if I click on description, I can either hide it or protect it or hide it, but I can't make it optional. So there are some system fields a system locks down to say, hey, this is a required field. You can protect it, meaning that people don't need to update it based on the user group, but it does have to be populated before you can actually save the record and move on. Those were the main things that I wanted to make sure to point out and kind of give the opportunity or share that information.
So Stephanie, there's a question here. Is it possible to change design of a screen, such as changing the position or adding a section?
So are you talking about just moving where you drag and drop? Is that what you mean by change design? Change the design, because you can do that if you want to. Let's say you want to move a field to a different area, maybe it makes sense, or you can drag and drop fields, and then even the block. Let's see, I'm going to pick a field and drag and drop it, and it'll give you a green arrow when you're good to go, or a green check mark saying yes, that's okay to move. Sometimes you have to drag and drop to each one before you actually get up there to get to where you're going. Oh, blocks. Blocks, you can edit the block name and you can change that kind of information, and you can move the blocks. I think you can. It's not letting me move. So I don't think you can actually move it, but you can change it. You can edit the block name of what it is and what's in that field by drag and dropping, but I don't think you actually change it on the screen. Rebecca, please correct me if I am wrong. I don't think you can actually, I mean, you can hide the ones you don't need.
Right. Yeah. So you can hide blocks. We can't necessarily move the block positions on the screen. I have seen some customers that will, move fields from one block to another, which Stephanie showed us. So it is possible if we're not using, say, the RCM details and we want to use that placeholder on the screen, we could move fields into another block, but we can't move the position of the block. But with the blocks, you can hide them all together. You can also have them render as collapsed or expanded.
And then Debbie asked about the status and what you see in that. So you can clean that up about what you actually see. Rebecca, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you can do status authorizations of what you can actually see and what status you move to what. And also you can do an advanced data spy, correct, Rebecca, for statuses themselves to clear out the ones you do not want to see in your lookup.
Yeah, so on a lot of fields, when you right click, you'll be able to define, say, like a drop down filter for the status field. So if you want to restrict that, you could. A lot of times that's going to be handled with status authorizations. I do see that filter apply to, say, the work order type. So if you don't, if you want to restrict the type of work orders, that users, are able to select from. So it's just a matter of applying a filter, and those filters do apply to all user groups. So that's another one to be aware of. And one thing while I'm thinking of it here, so something that we've done before is in the type, and this is as it pertains to work orders, is we've actually gone in a couple of environments, especially as users are learning EAM, and we have basically put the default value of the type field to null. So it forces the end users to select the type. Otherwise, if you don't define a default, it's going to populate to the first one in the list, which a lot of times is breakdown, okay, which may or may not be true. But basically you can set a default value and actually have the default value be null. It still is a required field, but it's just going to force the end users to input a value.
You, Rebecca, does anybody else have any questions? That was already 15, well, 16 minutes. So
Yeah.
anybody else have any questions? I know it's all really fast. 15 minutes really goes super fast. Before we
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing today. For me, it's always helpful, especially hearing from someone who started as a user, because I think a lot of times there's things that get missed, during the initial implementation and that ongoing training. So sometimes it's good to pause and just have a reset and a refresher. So that's all we have for today. Like I said, we're going to be hearing from Katie and Victor. Yet this month, we will be pausing the week of Thanksgiving, then resuming to wrap up the calendar year. So thank you everyone for your time, and we hope to see you back next week.